Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for joining my presentation today. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Lon O'Donnell. I work for a Las Vegas-based slot machine manufacturer called International Game Technology. About us, we are the world's largest supplier of slot machines, gaming, slot software, slot systems, pretty much anything you need to run a casino, you can buy from us. We have offices on 6 continents, and we are licensed in every major gaming jurisdiction in the world. My role, I work for the professional services department. In that, I have a group of 6 consultants that work for me, and we assist our customers in using our products and services to their highest and best functionality, whether that's how to use games or how to configure slot machines or how to configure different types of bonusing or marketing programs or whatever. Our job is to assist our customers in that capacity. What I'd like to do today is I'd like to talk to you about analytics, and I'd like to talk to you about how data mining and data visualization is changing the way Las Vegas operates, and about some of the different ways and creative ways that casinos here are using advanced analytics to get the answers they need. There's going to be 3 parts to my presentation. First, I'd like to talk about casino operations, the legends, and reality. Now, this is not analytics specific. It's basically just kind of a fun conversation about some of the things that you may have heard about casinos, and maybe we can debunk some myths there. Then I'd like to talk about analytics and modern mega resorts and talk about how they are using products like Tableau and other data mining tools to learn information that they didn't have before. And finally, I want to spend a few minutes on opportunities in the future. And essentially what that is where we're going from here, questions that we don't have answered, and some of the challenges that the industry is facing in a time of real change. Especially I want to talk about the disparate sources of data that mega resorts face. And the different departments all have different types of data structures and data sources, and the challenge there to bring that all together to be able to have a 360-degree view of their customers. So a little bit about me. I have been in gaming management my whole life. So far, 18 years in casino experience, and I did 14 of those years with MGM Resorts. If you're not familiar, MGM runs operations like Bellagio and the Mirage, just opened an operation, or a casino in Vietnam, expanding internationally, Dubai, and others that you've heard of. I spent some time at Circus, which also has a name for itself, mostly in the role of slots, casino marketing, or IT. And, of course, now I'm a consulting manager for IGT. All right. So, first of all, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about casinos. Okay, not everything you need to know about casinos, but I'm going to tell you some things that you didn't know before. So, first step, forget everything you think you know about casinos. Okay? If you've ever seen a Robert De Niro movie, if you've ever seen Vegas or any of that other stuff, then you have the wrong impression of how modern casinos work. First thing I want to talk about is the phrase you hear pretty frequently on advertisements and magazines, loose machines, right? Every casino has the loosest machines out there. 98% payback, 99% payback, this all flashes in the ads and talks about stuff. Here's the thing. When you talk about the payback of a slot machine, we don't even look at how a machine performs in terms of those percentages until it gets to about 10 million handle pulls. This is what we call the confidence level. This is where where the machine will fully mature to the point where it is actually offering that 98 to 99%. If you put in 1 coin and pull the handle and you lose it, that machine is holding infinity. As you get closer to 10 million handle pulls, now all of a sudden that 99% means something. So unless you plan on spending 10 million handle pulls at a slot machine, you're not going to really feel the effect of the whole percentage. Let's talk about casino customers for just a second. Let's talk about, and first of all, I need to apologize to iStock Photo in this scene. I promise I did actually buy both of these photos. It's just I'm lazy and I haven't put them in the presentation yet. So let's talk about what we think of what our stereotypical casino customer is. So we see the guy on the right. He comes through. He spends all day by the pool drinking, never makes a bet in the slot machine. And you've got the guy on the right. Hey, he's getting all the attention, right? He's a stereotypical VIP at the Mirage. He's walking around with a lot of chips. He loses 50 grand at blackjack. Which one of these customers do you think is more valuable to the casino? So you've probably figured out by now I'm talking about this guy because, you know, kind of obvious going the other way. But I want to talk about two words that casinos hold dearly: bottle service. If you are not a club goer and if you haven't used the various amenities at various casinos, you'll know that if you want a bottle of booze at a casino costs, well, if you haven't used these amenities, you won't know. But if you were to go to a casino, order yourself a bottle of Grey Goose, that'll cost you about $500. If you want a bottle of Johnny Walker, that's going to be about $500. And if you go to Hakkasan at the MGM Las Vegas, which this is an actual menu, you can have a dozen bottles of champagne for the low price of $500,000. Now, to be fair, that is delivered by a guy dressed in Superman hanging from the ceiling with the bottles. So if that's your thing, then maybe it's totally worth it. But the point is the casinos have found a whole different areas of revenue outside of gaming, and that's what's really taking off, and that's the type of thing that we need to spend some time with. Now let's talk about this guy. Let's talk about our stereotypical VIP. So we lost his $50,000 of blackjack, but what did it cost us to get there? We probably had to comp his room. We didn't comp the bottle service guy his room. And at current Las Vegas prices, with that kind of loss, that's going to be in the thousands of dollars. We comped his food, and if he had any wine, that's going to be in the thousands of dollars. He probably had some show tickets. We know that those will be in the hundreds. He got something called airfare reimbursement, which ironically has nothing to do with airfare. It's just an amount of money that casinos offer back to their high rollers based on how much they've lost, usually about 16%. And then we have something called core benefits. Core benefits is the baseline offering that the casino marketing department has to spend to keep those customers in. It can be everything from bounce back offers to calendar development to annual promos or free play, which I'll talk about here in a second. So let's talk about what modern casinos are and are not. What they are not. They are not big, scary, secretive operations run by shady people in dark rooms with green visors counting money. What they are is large behemoth corporations just like the one you work for. There are just as many cubes in the Mirage as there is in Oracle. What they can't do, they can't arbitrarily change the odds of a slot machine from a back room. They can, just not arbitrarily from a back room. In order to change the settings on a slot machine to make it more, change the odds on it, it varies by jurisdiction. In Nevada, the machine has to be shut down for at least 4 minutes. In Louisiana, it has to be shut down for 24 hours. The idea that they could come in and make any changes to the game while you're on it just actually doesn't happen. And they don't pump oxygen or use fancy smells or any of the other stuff to entice people to play slot machines. It turns out people just like to play slot machines anyway, so there's no real trickery or deceit needed. Another thing that we have to keep in mind is that they are highly regulated. And when I say that, it is the regulations to release a slot machine are much more strict than they are to release, say, a voting machine. Every aspect has to be approved. It costs companies a ton of money. The idea that a slot machine manufacturer, anybody would even try to change the settings or make it less than appealing to customers just doesn't make any sense. And regulators are not company friendly. They're not out to give the casinos breaks on anything. They will enforce those regulations. All right, I want to go one more time. Let's talk about a local radio program here in Las Vegas. This is called the Mark and Mercedes Show. Just a quick story about how myths and lore gets around. First of all, I don't mean to pick on Mark and Mercedes. This is a great show. It's family friendly. They've been in the Las Vegas area for years. But occasionally they take calls from casino customers and they come up with some goofy stuff. They had a call one morning. The guy called and said, listen, I was playing at a casino and I lost $500 and is convinced that the reason he lost that is because the internal maintenance person came over to wipe the slot machine down and change the settings of the machine while she was there. Now, Mark and Mercedes, again, have been in the Valley for 12 years, and they agreed. They thought that that's probably the type of things that are happening. So I want to give you kind of a quick idea here of why that doesn't happen. Let's talk about the MGM again, my favorite property. So the MGM has 6,852 rooms at an average room rate of $129. Obviously much higher on the weekends, but the published rate on their financial statements is $129. That means that MGM is making $883,000 a day just in the hotel on an average weekend. A couple of years ago, they installed a pool in the back. They called Wet Republic. So for a $50 cover charge and for $60 for a bucket of 5 beers, you can enjoy this pool with tens of thousands of your closest friends, apparently. We don't have hard numbers on that, but we estimate it makes about $500,000 a day on a busy weekend. Now we can talk about the slot machines. Average slot machine at MGM makes $189 per day, which means MGM slot operation takes in about $750,000 on an average weekend day. So we put all that together, and we have $2.1 million on a busy Saturday for MGM. We haven't even factored in the show or retail or any of the other dozen some odd revenue centers they have. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that it wouldn't make any sense for an average casino to send somebody out to do something nefarious to get you $500. They're making plenty of money anyway. And by the way, this math works well for smaller casinos as well. So let's talk about analytics and modern mega resorts. So part of the reason I gave you that information about the revenue and gave you all those big numbers is to kind of introduce you into what we are talking about in big data in casinos. First of all, an average casino has about 1,000 slot machines. Some more, some less. Obviously, MGM significantly more. But you can say an average casino has 1,000. Generally, those machines will have sub-games, or games that you can play ancillary to the primary game. So you might want to play Keno, or switch to video poker, or play another theme of video machine or whatever, but you can actually switch games inside there. And then each of those has a separate denomination. So you can play nickel Keno, you can play quarter video poker, you can play dollar slots, whatever you want to do on the same machine. In order to account for all those games, and we're just talking about the accounting, how much money that makes, and to reconcile each machine at the end of the day, you need to pull 6 meters on that game. And I can go into more about what those meters are later. Suffice to say, it's 6 long pieces of data that you have to pull from each machine every hour. What does that translate to? So every machine sends out 108,000 fields, the casino sends out 108,000 fields per hour, 2.5 million fields per day, or almost a billion fields per year have to get put into the database. We're just talking about slot machines, and we're just talking about accounting. So once you start getting into the player data and once you start getting into the other pieces of information, this obviously gets much bigger. I can tell you about a casino that we work with in Michigan that has decided that they want to keep all of this data going backwards. They have had their SAN, their storage area network, online since 1999, and they currently house 4.3 petabytes worth of data. Now let's talk about some terms in casino gaming. First thing we can talk about is coin in or handle. This is a measure of how much money goes through the machine every day. Let's talk about theoretical win. This will trace back to what I talked about a few minutes ago in terms of theoretically how much money the machine should be making if it held exactly its hold percentage. Now this is a difficult metric to get your head around, but suffice it to say, it's the single most important metric for a casino. If a casino wants to know how well a slot machine is performing, the first thing they ask is, what is its theoretical win? There's a lot of reasons for that we can discuss on a separate topic, but suffice to say, it's the single most important metric to a casino. Hold percentage we talked about a minute ago. This is how much the slot machine is designed to hold over time in percentage of money. Going back to that coin-in number on top, the hold percentage is a function of that. Then we have something called volatility and hit frequency. What this is, these are metrics of a slot machine that are not published, that the manufacturer knows. There are various types of ways that slot machines work to change what we call the slot personality. I won't get into too much detail there. Suffice it to say that all of these metrics go into account whether you're building a machine or whether you're analyzing a machine. Let's talk about some of the analytics that we do here and some of the things that are important to casinos. First, let's talk about smart scoring. Essentially, I mentioned a minute ago that the most important factor is theoretical win. The problem with theoretical win is it doesn't factor in the different things you need to know about a machine. What was the player experience like? Do players get to play it for a long time or a short amount of time? What are the revenue metrics, not just point in, not net win? There's a lot of different things that go into a player experience. If you have a slot machine that takes money very quickly and has a high theoretical win, that doesn't mean it's a good machine for your floor. You have to look at things like the player experience, time on device, and we'll get into that. And then we talk about attribute indexing. These are the attributes of a slot machine that aren't, well, some are published, but aren't necessarily published, that we index together and can help better understand the type of slot machine that works. I'll get into that more in a second. We look at forensics and outliers, basically any opportunity for theft or any sort of reconciliation that the machine doesn't put. Is there a reason why a machine is overperforming or underperforming? Are there a lot of, is it doing something that's outside of its specifications? A lot of times the only way to get that information is through secondary tools. I want to talk about game lifecycle reports. This is a report that shows us the usable life of a slot machine, and not necessarily in terms of maintenance or utility, but how much players like that game. When you look at the lifespan of a game, you can see where players come back to it frequently, or when they start migrating away to other games. And you can see on the graph, once a game starts losing its loyalty, what we call loyalty play, once the comebacks start going to other types of games, your game is on the lower life cycle. So that's the time you want to take a look at it and start changing things up. And then, of course, we have operations and service reporting, basically just how well employees are performing on the floor and how well the slot machines are being maintained. So the first example I'd like to give you is reporting on operations. This is a standard approved report that every casino in the world uses. Or I'm sorry, I should rephrase. This is a report that we produce here at IGT. Basically, this gives you all of the information you need to know about how your employees are performing. How long it took them to respond to calls, how much they paid while they were there, if there were any variances in between. Now, I'll challenge any modern slot manager to look at this and figure out if it tells them anything about, or if it's easy to read or tells them anything about the performance of their machine. So, obviously what we did, we took this report, dropped it into Tableau, and now it looks more like this. Smaller is better, darker is better. Smaller is the amount of time, darker is the amount of calls. So you can see pretty clearly on this that our best employee is on the top as compared to the old spreadsheet style report. Now, I will admit we did doctor this data a little bit just for purposes of this presentation, but suffice to say I think the point is made that it's a heck of a lot easier to read than on the approved canned report that we send out. Let's talk about advanced player analytics. This is my favorite stuff here, and this is the stuff that's really coming into its own on slot floors. What you're looking at here is the likelihood of a player to move from one slot machine to another. For example, on the top here, well, we'll take the second one here, the Da Vinci Diamond. The likelihood of them moving to a Rembrandt Riches is 18 times higher than them moving to a Noah's Ark. So why is that useful? When a slot manager is laying out a slot floor, it's always a random process to figure out what machines get next to each other. If I take machine A and put it next to machine B, is it likely that the person will move there? Or is it just another machine next to another machine? In terms of machine placement, in terms of customers being able to find machines that they would like, this is basically crowdsourcing how you lay out the slot floor. So I can look at this and easily say, look, if players like game A while they're next to game B, I should place them close to each other so that they can find other games, the games that they like, so they don't have to move on to different areas of the casino. Here's a topic that everybody likes to talk about. This is something called free play. If you frequent casinos, you've probably in your life at some point gotten an offer for something called free play. This is where a casino sends you an offer and says, hey, you get $10 to gamble on us, or you get $100 to gamble on us. And basically what that is it allows you to run a certain amount of money through the slot machine. The trick is you can't cash it out. Once you put the money in there, you have to wager it at least one time, but you can't just take the money and walk away. So why is this a risk for casinos? When casinos do this, there's a very high probability that a customer will come in, run the money through the machine, and then whatever they get paid back from that amount, just walk out the door. This is what we call a cash and dash, where they just come in to use their offered free play or free play that's advertised and just take the money and walk. So what we're looking at here is a way to easily see which of your customers has used their free play and left with more money than they started. You can see here the top customer. We had to blur out the names. I apologize. Some of this was live data. But you see the top customer in September. He paid $1,350 in free play, and he left with $437 of our own money. You can see for 4 months in a row, for a total of $7,400, he left with more money than we offered him in free play. And what this tells you is that this is an at-risk customer, someone that's just using your free play without, for not its intended purposes. By the way, I would take a second and show and point out the fact this is on mobile. This report here was deployed on iPad. Here's another free play player list. Again, free play is a high-risk entity for a casino. They are literally sending money out to their customers, and they need to know if they're being paid back on that metric. So you can see here basic information. Red is bad, blue is good. And I'll get to blue in a second, but as you can see, the red-lined players there, some of them are using their free play at 94%, 96%, 98%. They're using all their free play and leaving. The blue can be worse in another direction, where you're sending big offers to good players and they're not utilizing those offers to their capacity, right? So they come in, they play 20% of whatever they make, and they walk out. Are they getting the offers that should be customized to them? Are they getting the type of offer that they'll use? If they're not using what you're sending them, you need to take a step back and figure out if you're sending them the right stuff. One more section here. This is called a heat map. What the heat map tells us is areas of the casino with high or low amounts of play. I don't know if you can see this close up, but blue games are low play, red games are higher play. And then, of course, we have all the metrics on the side where you can adjust what you're looking at, what you want to see. For example, if you want to find out which manufacturers play well or not, or which teams are playing well or not. I mentioned about theoretical win and point in. You can see the display there shows you these metrics of the casino to show you kind of how the individual areas are performing. So here's the dirty little secret about heat mapping. It's really great to look at, and it's really great eye candy. At the end of the day, it doesn't help you a whole lot in managing your floor. If you were to ask the slot manager which areas of his floor perform well versus underperform, they can usually tell you. Having this heat map is great to look at, and it tells non-slot people information that they didn't have before, but for actual slot operations and running a department, this isn't as useful as it may seem. All right, let's get into some real-world exercises, some areas where we customize consulting engagements here